Hey everyone, this is Ant and welcome back to the attic. Now, if you've noticed your views and sales and messages have dropped recently, you are not alone. There's been a bunch of changes to eBay and Vinted recently, and I want to talk about the big ones and what they mean for you as a seller. By the end of this video, you'll have 3 or 4 actionable shifts that you can make right now to stay visible and make up for lost ground.
Who you gonna call? Ant's Attic.
So change number 1 is on Vinted. The new listing rule is no more delisting and relisting to bump visibility. So what changed? You used to be able to delete an unsold item and then relist it so it shows up higher in the search. Vinted has officially outlawed that. Penalties or account restrictions are going to be in place for abusing this. Now, that's devastating because if something hasn't sold in a week on Vinted, you're probably not going to sell it. So a trick around this, rather than paying for Vinted's boost or what else do they have? You can either bump or you can highlight your wardrobe. That's the 2 things that they've got. A way around it was to save your listing, all the pictures, all the categories, copy it over, and then put it up there as if it was a brand new listing. You can't do that anymore. Vinted say if you do that, they will potentially delete your account. Be careful. Simple delivery was mandated for many private sellers, limiting courier choice with complaints about drop-off inconvenience. Then exemptions were made for low-value items in certain categories. Also, changes to tracking and display for delivery were being rolled out. So for small and low-priced items, postage costs, delivery times, courier options, they eat into your margins. I mean, I know firsthand all about this. I sell a lot of low-value, low-cost items. So if you can't choose to send something via Royal Mail second class in an envelope, which would cost 87 pence, if you've got to send that by recorded delivery, which is up to like £2.35, something like that, then that's you can't sell low price things anymore. Or if you do, you have to throw on a whole load of postage that the buyer will pay for, and it will completely put them off. So what to do? Check whether your items are affected. See if you can use simple delivery or exemptions. Build postage and handling costs into the price. If you still want to offer free postage, then you're going to have to bump up the baseline price of your item. Ensure your tracking is reliable as well. Look, I've got a lot of negative feedback. I say a lot. I've had, I think, 14 negative feedbacks over the last 12 months, and every single one of them were for a low value item that got lost by Royal Mail. If you want to avoid that, you have to send everything track. Now, I'm not a fan of that. I want to offer low cost, low price options for people who may be not having a great deal of money to spend on things. I'm a high volume, low cost seller. So it's in my best interest to get things out as cheap as possible. The next thing I want to talk about is AI and the tools around it, the messaging assistant and other eBay seller updates. So what's changed? eBay has introduced an AI assistant now for messaging, suggesting replies to buyer questions. It's also revised seller protections and feedback systems. So the implications of this is that it can save you time, but you'll need to monitor those suggestions. I had it for the first time this morning where someone had asked me a question about one of the items I was selling, and it was what items are included in this listing. And a lot of the questions from buyers are, the information is already there in the listing. But in this case, the AI in the messaging just said, look, here's the answer. Edit and send. And I didn't even need to edit because what it suggested was absolutely spot on. So for now, and in this very limited instance that I've had, I'm happy. I'm happy with eBay's little AI, but do keep an eye on them, because generic sort of blatantly not human replies to messages can affect your feedback and reputation. Test the AI replies, but personalize. Reply quickly, ask for feedback if appropriate. Keep your listing info super clear, so if buyer questions do come through for any reason, you can just refer them back to the listing or copy out of that, as the AI has done in my case. So the 4th point I want to talk about is the fee structures and competition pressure. So what's changed here? eBay has removed many seller fees for private sellers in the UK, excluding some categories like eBay Motors and stuff like that. They're trying to compete with Vinted and Depop. But buyer fees, buyer protection, regulation, charges, all stuff like that, they haven't settled on what they want. So it's in a constant state of flux. Nothing is set yet. The implications of this are more sellers are entering or getting back into selling. There's more competition, especially in fashion and common categories, so margins might be tighter. If you've got more people selling, you're competing against more people, and so if your unique point is that you're the cheapest in town, the cheapest just got cheaper because Dave down the road, he's now selling on Vinted and eBay as well, where he may have been put off about seller fees or simple postage. Now that that's a little bit more clear, he's come back in and he's bringing his cheap goods. So what to do for you? Find niche or branded items, improve your photos and descriptions, price smart, refresh your listings, keep everything up to date, and consider bundling to, add value to what you're putting out there. That's something I've started doing in the past, especially with like DVDs and games that you can see behind me. I've put them out one at a time because if I was buying, I would want the specific thing. But as a seller, I want to shift as much of that as possible in one go. So if I can bundle a collection of games or DVDs for £10, rather than sit there and wait for people to buy the individual DVDs, come on. It's so much easier and so much quicker. Your cash flow is better if you bundle stuff and just get it away. You want that constant inventory coming in and going out, coming in and going out. So having said all that, I believe what we're seeing now at the moment, we're at a tipping point. So platform algorithms and policies are increasingly trying to level the playing field, or, at least reduce the amount of people gaming the system. I've been quite critical in the past of people who have been using eBay as private sellers, but they are blatantly a business. I'm a business seller. I've got literally thousands of pounds worth of inventory here in my attic. And so the best thing for me was to operate as a business. I'm a limited company. So right the way through, I'm fully embraced being a business, but there are people out there, and it is cheaper for them to do it this way, where they say, oh no, I'm just clearing out a few things that I've bought, for myself, and I've worn them a few times, and now I'm just selling them on. I'm just a private seller. But they're not. They're blatantly doing the exact same thing that I am, only they're not paying the fees associated with it. So they're forcing sellers, and I say forcing because that's what the policies and the things that they've implemented are doing. They're forcing the sellers to compete on a more level playing field and do it a bit more cleanly. That means the advantages of selling like that shifts to those who work smart: presentation, consistency, fast responses, and customer trust. So that's what's new, that's what's changed, and that's what you can do now. If you like, I can do a video next week digging into top low competition niches or hidden gems that you might not have thought of yet. If you want me to do something like that, let me know. I mean, it's all trial and error. I'm always experimenting myself. For example, I've tried with world cinema DVDs and hardback books. It wasn't a couple of weeks ago, the first time I used ChatGPT to take a couple of pictures of a shelf full of books and say, what is the value here? Where is the money? And it gave me a few ideas. And within a week, I'd sold about £20 worth of books that cost me like £1 each. So think outside of your sort of comfort zone. For me as well, it's been men's fashion. Like all of the clothes that I buy have been men's clothes because I know men's clothes. But there's a whole... In fact, women are far more likely, and the research does show this, women are far more likely to buy secondhand clothes than men. So that's an entire market that I am not selling to because I don't know what women like. Of course I knew what women like in fashion and other things, but what we're talking about is reselling. So get back on track, Anthony. No, but that's me hamstringing myself because I'm uncomfortable buying and selling women's clothes. That doesn't make sense. I bought a mixed bundle from the Vintage Wholesale Supply a few months ago, and I have sold dresses and stuff from that. So now I'm getting a feel of what sells, the types of thing that sell, the brands that sell, and the prices and profits that I can make. So I think I've spoken enough here. As always, drop a comment if you've noticed anything else that I might have missed about Vinted and eBay. They're the two primary platforms that I use to sell. I've looked into doing Depop. I just can't. I just want to focus on eBay and Vinted because that's what's working for me right now. But yeah, I mean, feel free to drop in, have a chat. I'll try and reply to comments as best and as quickly as possible. But now is a tough time for resellers because we're coming to the end of car boot season. Everyone shifts their sourcing into charity shops, so a lot of the good stuff goes very, very quickly. If you've got any gems, if you've got any ideas, if you want any advice, let me know. And thanks for watching. If you want to watch some more, tap on the subscribe area. Well, I don't know where you're watching this, if it's on your phone, your tablet, your TV, or if you're sat behind a computer just like what I am. Give us a subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.